p.m. Tracy, can we have a roll call, please?
Okay. Director Boyd,
Here.
Director Decker,
Here.
Director Harvey,
Here.
Director Lohman,
Here.
Director Slater Carter.
Present.
For the president's statement, I'd just like to welcome everyone here for our audience here and for those at home who are going to watch this later on PCT. Thank you for joining us. Every meeting this year, I think we've made some comment about we're in an unprecedented drought, or well, it's precedented, but it's been a while, and so this is shaping up to be a rather substantial one. So we'll do two things: remind everybody we are in a drought, and that wise water use is really important. We're in pretty good shape as a water district, but we never know how long this is going to go. So wise water use is something that's really important for us to do all the time, but especially when things are looking critical like this. And just keep in mind our neighbors are not necessarily in as good a shape as we are, and together we can all build patterns of better water use and be mindful of the strain that some of our neighboring systems are under. With that, do we have any oral comments for items not on the agenda?
Actually, we've received a written comment, and I would like Tracy to read the comment out, if you can do that, Tracy.
Is this on the agenda?
Most topics in this comment are not on the agenda.
Okay.
We can repeat actually what was said about specific topics when we get to them, so we can reread it once more.
Sounds good.
Okay, ready?
Please.
Hi, this is Tom Moore, Cedar Street, Montara resident and ratepayer to MWSD. Have comments/questions for tonight's meeting, September 2nd, 2021. Understand you have rules on public board meetings /public comment 3-minute limits. Not familiar with. I am not capable of Zoom. Would like to submit by email. If my comments/questions violate your rules for public meetings in any way, could you forward to all MWSD board members? If MWSD installs mile-long pipe to Big Wave by airport, does developer pay for installation? Since homeowners are responsible for laterals, will developer of Big Wave pay for maintenance, operating costs of water pipe to their prop, or will all future costs be passed on to all residents/ratepayers in MWSD? What is status of Caltrans original Devil's Slide bypass Martini Creek lands? Since at least 2016, MWSD, Caltrans, San Mateo Soups, Coastal Commission, et cetera, have been in super secret talks. Seemed like MWSD was considering taking over lands, turning into park, allowing leases like horse ranches on Sunshine Valley Road continue. No development at all. MWSD could look for more wells/water. I agree with idea completely. Any updates, comments? What is the status of Caltrans reducing fire hazard for eucalyptus groves on same original bypass lands? Has MWSD considered imposing immediate moratorium on all/any development that has not broken ground for Montara/Mont's Beach water connections due to 1,000-year drought, no rain to replenish supply? Water storage in Montara/Moss Beach is only for single house fire, while California is burning 100,000 acres every year, parentheses Tahoe with question mark. And no money to repair, upgrade, replace existing pipes. Not to mention increased traffic on Highway 1, which is already parking lot even before Big Wave or Cypress Point. I advocate no development immediately for said reasons. Again, this is more than one comment. If it violates the rules, understand. Could you please send this note to all MWSD board members? Thank you, Tom Moore.
Hey,
All right.
Clemens, I think it's appropriate that you could give quick answers to several of those for them.
Let me take us through that. So on the first one, I'm going to say, let's take the issues about Big Wave and cover that under new business 1. And then help me if I missed anything. What I've got is the status on Caltrans land, status on Caltrans fire hazard, and a question about a potential moratorium based on the water supply. Did I miss any of those topics?
That's good.
Tracy, do you think
that's good.
The 3? Okay.
Mhm.
On the Caltrans land, I'm just going to go ahead and assert, oh yes, we have an interest in the Caltrans land. It is long-standing policy of this district to strengthen and bolster its water supply. And we've been looking for water for quite a while. And we actually drilled test wells on the Caltrans land and got some really nice results. Status of where we are in talking to Caltrans is a matter that we can only discuss in closed session. And we're not going to be able to give any information here, unfortunately.
Well, let me add something when you finish, Scott.
Please go
on
ahead.
Caltrans.
Catherine. Please go ahead.
Okay. So the other day I was out in my yard talking to somebody, and I saw this Caltrans vehicle go by. This little sedan kind of thing. And in a few minutes, he came back the other way. And so I waved him down and I said, "Are you lost?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, "What are you looking for?" And so he showed me the Caltrans map of the bypass property.
Mm.
So I told him how to get there and asked him what he was doing with it. And he said he was assessing it for the reduction of mass for fire protection. He said they only had a few weeks to use up the money. But Caltrans is actively working on that. I can attest. I talked to the fellow. I sent his email to Clemens, and I sent a note to both Clemens and he saying that we would be more than happy to talk to him and tell him where the worst areas are, the most problematic areas, because Clemens and many of our board members walk that land routinely. And so he'd never seen it before. He'd never heard of it before. And I said, well, if you want knowledgeable opinions, just call Clemens and set it up.
That's terrific. I'm glad to hear that they're out and about. Clemens, did you have anything you wanted to add on either? of the
Well,
topics?
actually, yes, Catherine, you just said that you sent me and the person an email. Maybe just verify that, because I did not get an email with his contact information. And when you and I talked, I had an understanding that you gave him my email. He was supposed to contact me.
I
So
did that.
let's follow up on
I
this
also
maybe
sent-
offline. I just want to make sure that we don't miss anything here.
I'll follow up on it.
Okay. Thanks.
Clemens, did you have any comment on the process of the land acquisition interest?
I think your statements were all correct, Scott, and I think we can't talk about really the status of the acquisition, but what we can say also is that the Midcoast Community Council reached out to Caltrans, and I'm sure Greg can fill in the details. He has his hand up. Caltrans indicated that they would do some work. What I can say is we've not seen any work so far. I'm glad I heard what Catherine told us just now and what we talked about before, but we haven't really seen any work yet.
I'll mention that I read through the letter that they wrote in response. I'll just say that staff wrote the letter. I signed the letter on behalf of the board, and Caltrans wrote a response. I think we have an opportunity, given some of the things that were said, to communicate and help clarify some issues where I think there may be an opportunity for improved understanding. I'll leave it at that, but I'm glad I'm glad that they replied, and I'm even more glad that they sent someone out. So maybe we can wind up being even further facilitative there. On the question of the moratorium, I'll take a stab at it. The question has come to us a number of times. Catherine brought it to us because some people had brought it to her, and we've had our attorney weigh in and talk about what kind of things would be involved in something like that. There's been people keep coming, one or two at a time, asking this very question. At this time, we're not planning any moratorium. We have talked a number of times here at the board level in public about the current state of the water system. We're always happy to answer questions about it. We have a pretty good grip on what we know about our system and what we know about its reserves and what it's capable of and where the risks are. So while there's a lot of interest in, there's some development interest about what a moratorium might do. There's some interest about having adequate fire protection. We've discussed that topic many times here about what kind of fire protection the district and water systems in general provide, and what kind of fire protection someone like CAL FIRE provides, and where they get their supplies to fight fires. And it's not from municipal systems. But it is a good question, and I'll say too, to the question about the length and the number of topics, you know what, we've got a little bit of flexibility most times. Where we need to get particular with time is where we've got a lot of people who want to get something in, and we want to give everybody a good opportunity to get their time in. And we have from time to time used a 3-minute time limit to try to get through a whole bunch of comments. But from time to time, on occasion, you've been saving up some questions. We're really glad you brought the questions to us. And if you have more questions,
we'd love comments.
And bring us more. We're really glad to have your participation and your interest. Let's see, I see another hand. And did anyone else have anything to throw in on any of those topics before I move on to Greg?
No.
Okay, let's move on to Greg. Greg Dieguez.
Well, there is kind of an overlap. I will tell you that as part of the work I was doing on the local hazard mitigation plan with the county, I also reached out to Caltrans about a number of issues, including the fire danger on the bypass, and specifically the house that Vic Abity and I had looked at. Somebody did something to that house. They cut the connection, and they seem to have cleaned things up a little. So that, and then Caltrans did say it was going to do fuel reduction. But the point I wanted to make here was I wanted to thank the district, specifically, I believe, Clemens and Tanya, for their submission to the local hazard mitigation plan. Not every agency that could have participated did. For instance, GCSD backed out. And Montara doing a good job, very precise, and including Sam, I hope will accrue to everyone's benefit down the road. So thank you for that effort. I forwarded some detailed comments to, I think, Clemens and Tanya and maybe Peter Decker, but nothing we need cover here. So thanks again.
Right.
Let me throw in a real quick comment since you mentioned, Greg, the local hazard mitigation plans. They're working at the state level to include wildfire in the planning process. It hasn't been part of the local hazard mitigation plan itinerary. So they're working on getting it in there.
I just like to throw public comment when you're ready, Scott.
Go ahead, Rick.
We just got back from the Special Districts Conference. There's some interesting things that our California Sacramento agency is doing for us. Some of the quick interesting things is at the federal level, there is no definition of what a special district is. There was a bunch of California legislation that put all this money out for everything, never mentioned special districts. We have this amazing lobbying group, which is now reaching out to other special district groups in other states they now have a presence in Washington. Their current thing is to get legislation through that defines what special districts are at a federal level, which then will possibly get funding and appreciation and stuff like that because of the unique status and work the special districts do. So we thought they were very proud of that, and they've done a lot of work getting to the national level now about funding and emergency funding and supporting and all that for special districts, which has never been done before. So that was a cool thing.
All right, do we have any other public comment for items not on the agenda? I don't see any more hands. Let's move on to the consent agenda. Do we have any directors who wish to pull any items for consideration? Hearing none, can I have a motion for items 1 through 10?
Make the motion.
Could I,
Second.
could I pull one of the
Sure.
agenda items?
Sure, Connor. Which one?
The SAM flow report.
Okay, let's pull item number 4. Let's just hold off on the vote until we go through that item, and then we can do them all together. Is that okay, Peter?
That's fine.
Okay, Clemens?
Yeah, thank you. I asked for this to be pulled because I think it was Catherine who at the last meeting also asked for this to be looked at a little closer. We had sewer flows coming to the treatment plant from Half Moon Bay at that time at 62%. I want to point out that was the June flows. I want to point out that we now show the July flows, and the July flows are showing 67% of total flows coming from Half Moon Bay.
That's the average dry weather, though. It's not the
that's
daily
correct.
dry weather.
That's correct. However, I want to say this is so the Montara and Granada flows are constant. So this is a 25% increase in the midst of a drought. So I think this is important to note for our SAM board members, and maybe the SAM board members can ask some questions about this at the next meeting. I think this is an irregularity that is worth pointing out and asking some questions about. Thank you.
So this is the 67%, Clemens?
Yeah,
that you're referring
66,
to?
excuse me, 66%. So I think this is pretty much a 20-25% flow increase from June to July. And I think that is rather significant in the midst of a drought.
It's worth noting that for years, the number hovered just right above 50%. And it's been creeping up, and as Clemens, just to restate, has crept up sharply in the past couple of months. So that's SSOs, but we're looking at flow. Okay. Is there a graph? Yeah, here we go. So this is just over the month of July.
There's some long-term graphs below that as well.
In the Half Moon Bay review, it was mentioned that there was excessive water use, and that the person who manages CCWD actually complained about this to the city. She said there was water gushing out of a pipeline in the new construction of the southern part of Half Moon Bay, where they are making the new road leading to the city center. And that could be part of it.
I don't think so, because it is irrigation. That was irrigation.
Yeah.
And that wouldn't enter the sewer system, as far as I can understand it.
Okay.
Like this has been really quite steady over at least 31 days. So if there was some, irrigation water release or something like that, you'd see a spike.
Well, it's interesting to see there are occasions where it's up, days where it's up over 70%.
Yeah.
Scott, real quick comment.
Yeah, go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, just for the public, the usage figures are determined often by a complex subtraction formula where they measure things at what is actually coming into the plant, then they subtract out Granada and Montara, and then based on that, this is what Half Moon Bay pays. Probably 8 or 9 years ago or so, when I was on the Granada group, all of a sudden Granada's usage skyrocketed and Half Moon Bay's dropped tremendously. After about 8 months of analysis, they figured out that the receiving meters at the plant were bad, and they got it all corrected and all the numbers went back to normal. I'm not saying that this is a problem like that, but it's a very, not a complex formula. It's got 2 subtractions in it. But at the time, once they corrected it, Granada was about $80,000 to $90,000 in debt because of this. And we on Granada said, okay, we got that cleaned up. Half Moon Bay through SAM or whatever, can you pay us back all that money you owed us that you got for free? And they laughed in our faces and walked away. So I just had to make that comment.
That's right.
Yep. You know, some may ask, I mean, this conversation may raise the question for some about, well, why do you have to do this math? Why can't you just put meters in all the right places? And the answer is meters cost a lot of money, and more money than the board at SAM has ever deemed worth spending. And you know, it's a judgment call. We've considered this a number of times. Every time we have decided, nope, we're not going to spend the money, but it does give us pause when we come to situations like this where we see substantial changes and we want to know why. Every now and then it's like, kind of wish that money was spent so that we would have a little easier time answering the questions. But right now, I think the question that Clemens raises is the one that we should really camp on, and that is there something that needs to be found so it can be fixed that represents a greater flow that we would not expect in a drought?
We'll
That's
bring it up. We'll bring it up.
that's a
Well,
good.
I will
question.
ask to have it on the SAM agenda, which is September 13.
All right. Well, thank you both. We'll look forward to any feedback. And honestly, I mean, I think it's you know, getting to our partners at SAM and, you know, putting the question in front of them so they have the opportunity to think about it and see if there's something to be done. I'm pulling my agenda back up and my pages are blank. Why are they blank?
Okay, we're done. I move to adjourn.
I'll second that.
We're done.
I managed to find one where the page is filled in. Okay, can I have a motion, please, for consent agenda items 1 through 10 as listed?
I'll make the motion.
We have one.
I didn't call out the motion in the second. So we've got a motion from Peter
And a second from me.
and a second from Catherine. All right. Could we have a roll call vote, please, Tracy?
Director Boyd,
Aye.
Director Decker,
Aye.
Director Harvey,
Aye.
Director Loman,
Yes.
Director Slater Carter.
Aye.
Okay, so totaling up all the ayes and yeses, that sounds like a unanimous 5-0. Thank you for approving the consent agenda. We have no old business. Well, actually, we have old business, none, and now new business. Let's start with the first of 6 items: review and possible action regarding the Big Wave NPA main extension dedication. Clemens, let me ask you. Let's start by: do we have a definition for NPA?
It's the North Parcel Alternative that was approved in 2015. So that was after long negotiations with the permitting agencies where Big Wave landed
Thank you.
with the approval of this version that doesn't develop the south parcel for Big Wave.
All right.
Thank you, Scott. So it has been a long time working with Big Wave. We've been working with Big Wave since much longer than 2015. And now Big Wave has paid for the implementation of a new water main line from the Airport Street area, from the beginning of the north section of Airport Street, all the way to actually the Big Wave development. And that is a 12-inch diameter water main that ties into a higher pressure zone that allows mainly for fire flow purposes for the new development, but also for domestic uses. We are here asking to the board to adopt a resolution to accept the phase 1 water main improvements. Now, this main line I want to point out is a main line. This is not a service line. We are starting negotiations with Big Wave on essentially what we would call a service line, or it is going to be a loop with some service lines for on-site improvements. So this phase 1 does not include the on-site improvements, but is essentially the first step for Big Wave to start construction. They are required to have this fire protection for the construction phase. And we also have Tim Monahan here with us, who was very much involved in the construction of the project. So if there are any questions when it comes to the actual construction, feel free to ask Tim these questions. I also want to say that now that if this main line is accepted into the district can make decisions about the main line, and it can be used for any other development or any other purpose in that area if this now is taken into our distribution system. We also have Tanya here, who helped us with the Big Wave project in general. So I think there is a lot of knowledge that we can share. Thank you.
Okay, Rick, I see your hand.
Yeah, just real quick. Could you, Clemens, specifically, really quickly address that the letter we had earlier read on the fact that who's paying for what, and once it's accepted into the system, who pays for what? So just
Tracy,
be very specific to that viewer who wrote in.
Could I ask you to reread so that it's maybe fresh in our minds what Mr. Moore is actually asking?
It's the part about Big Wave, right?
Just the part about Big Wave, yes.
Okay. If MWSD installs mile-long pipe to Big Wave by airport, does developer pay for installation? Since homeowners are responsible for laterals, will developer of Big Wave pay for maintenance, operating costs of water pipe to their prop, or will all future costs be passed on to all residents / ratepayers in MWSD?
So thank you, Tracy. I'm gonna say, well, the question about if MWSD installs a mile-long pipeline, does the developer pay for installation? Clearly, yes, the developer paid for the installation. Since it further says, since homeowners are responsible for laterals, will Big Wave be responsible for lateral? So first of all, lateral is a term that we're using on the sewer side, and homeowners are responsible for laterals. Service line is essentially what we call a lateral on the water side, and service lines in the district are maintained by the district up to the property line. From the property line to the house, it is the homeowner's responsibility. So this is what we're currently talking about to Big Wave, essentially. What happens to the on-site improvement? I hope I answered all of Mr. Moore's questions.
Hey, I'd like to throw in a comment and then a couple of questions. a comment. I just want to emphasize that Clemens informed the board and the public that if the board accepts the offer of dedication of this pipeline that was constructed by the developer, the district then gets to choose how this operates as part of the overall system. And any additional facility brings benefit in terms of operational flexibility to the agency. Clemens, you or one of our engineers, this was all done to our exacting engineering specifications. Is that correct?
I'm going to have one of the engineers answer that question so that we're absolutely certain.
Yes, Mr. President, the specifications and standards were provided to Big Wave. Their engineer designed it. We have reviewed the drawings, approved them, then they built, and Tim can comment on Tim Monahan here, who was inspecting the pipeline construction, was also checking the compliance with the standards. So it's just like any pipeline the district would build. This was built in accordance with the district standards.
So that would be for not only being done well, but as a brand new system to those standards, we expect a good long life for what was just built. That would be the typical expectation, right?
That's right.
I think it might be beneficial. Do we know what was what the cost of this extension was?
$800,000.
Okay, and that was all paid for by the developer.
That's correct.
All right, terrific. Thank you. Do others have questions or comments?
Yeah, I have a comment. I think what we have not answered was the question, has the developer is the developer contributing anything to the future maintenance of this main line that is only going to that Big Wave development? The request that I made previously is that we look at that situation, and that ideally would be looked at in the framework of the rate study, of a new water rate study, including the review of the connection fees. Clemens had previously mentioned that he started the process. How far are we, Clemens?
Well, I mentioned at the last meeting that we've actually waited for the completion of the year-end information. We have that now. And so we can now work with this data, or it's now starting to our consultant, Bart Wells, now has all the information that they need to do the rate study and start the discussions with us. Good. So that's essentially the standard. To your question, the answer I can already answer, yes, they're paying for the future maintenance cost, because a portion of all service fees are for maintenance of the system. It is not all mere operations, but portions of the fees are going to for renewal of main lines, for example. We just passed a water system reliability charge in addition to our service fees. The water system reliability charge is exclusively designed to for capital projects. So Big Wave will be asked to pay those fees as well. So clearly Big Wave is going to pay for operation, maintenance, and replacement costs in the future as well.
All right, let's see. Catherine?
I have a comment. Yeah,
Yes,
thank you.
I'm-
I want to
I
say
see the
that.
hands raised. I'll call on people. So Catherine first and then Greg, please.
Okay, I want to comment that we have an emergency water agreement with Coastside County Water District. This pipeline goes almost to the edge of our district service area. So it puts us much closer to being able to do emergency connections either to or from Coastside County Water District. In the past, it would have taken quite a bit more temporary pipeline to be able to make that connection, and it would have taken longer. So our whole community does have an emergency line benefit from this, and we need to keep that in mind. We may need to look at updating it, and that would be the operations committee to look at it first and see if we even think it should be updated in reviewing it. But because this pipeline is there, it does either help us in the event of a drought, or more likely it will help Coast County Water District, our neighbors.
All right, thank you, Catherine. Greg?
So I emailed you all some thoughts, and thank you, Clemens, for correcting the terminology here. It seems that Big Wave requires an extra long, giant service line to connect to the water system. It's 880,000 in the documentation you have. I understand Jeff Peck got a deal because it was previously estimated that it would be over $1 million. And, you know, over the years at 3.5% inflation, let's say 40 years of inflation at 3.5%, 1 million becomes 4 million. And if you wanted to save up for the eventual replenishment of that asset, you'd need a payment of about $26,000 in the first year, and over the years, an increasing annual contributions to reserves. And then in the last year, you'd need $99,000. Plus the accumulated interest on those reserves would pay for replacing that pipe. And of course, if the pipe lasts 80 years, the numbers just get bigger. The Big Wave connection represents other risks. It's in a tsunami zone. It's very near the San Gregorio Fault, and I put a map to that effect in an article I wrote today. Things could go wrong. Things could cost extra to fix. And of course, as we've just been discussing, that pipe will require some operation and maintenance costs over the years before replacement becomes an issue. So what to do with this unique extra risk and extra cost for Big Wave? Well, one option is to not accept the donation of this asset to the district. Leave it the responsibility of the developer and his subsequent owners and tenants. Then just charge those users the exact same rates and water system reliability charges the rest of us have to pay. Alternatively, if you accept those extra risks and extra costs, then it seems to me that fiduciary responsibility dictates that you analyze what those future costs will be and incrementally charge them to the Big Wave users, so that existing ratepayers who are already distressed by the high cost of public works in Montara do not bear any risks or costs for a new development from which they do not benefit. Perhaps a long-term insurance policy paid for by those users is in order, because the current one-year warranty in those documents surely exposes existing ratepayers to undue risks over the coming decades. Now, there is precedent in other public works districts for charging extra for usage zones, which are further away from the main infrastructure. And such charges can be within the Prop 218 guidelines as long as the analysis of causation is documented. So this is not undoable. I haven't seen an analysis of the risks and costs of accepting this donation from Big Wave. And so my request of the board is that you perform the necessary financial due diligence to protect the interest of existing ratepayers and either A, decline to accept ownership of this pipeline, leaving them to operate, maintain, and replace it, or defer a decision until a hold harmless analysis is done and sufficient protections are in place and agreed to by Big Wave so that current ratepayers are not burdened by these extra risks and costs. Now, we've had some good comments tonight about derivative benefits, particularly there from Catherine, but I haven't seen this documented and fully assessed and presented to the ratepayers as the best analysis of what the district should do. And so that is my request. Don't make a decision to accept this until you've done that homework and shared it with the ratepayers. Thank you.
Greg,
All right.
I would,
Oh, go ahead, Clemens.
if I may, I would like to just point out maybe one error in your, at the very beginning in your calculation. You're taking the construction cost and are now escalating it to be a replacement cost. Replacement cost is not the same as construction cost. There is a difference, and What it is, I can't say, particularly not in 40 years, technologies are evolving. So I think that's a point that I want to make.
And I have a question for Christine. And that is, I would like your opinion on if we can treat one project differently than all of our other projects.
Thank you, Director Slater Carter. Good evening, directors. Well, I actually was raising my hand to just inform the board of our regulations pertaining to subdivision projects. And it's our regulation, our code section 5-4.213, which is also part of the mainline extension agreement. And our regulations require subdivision distribution mains and service connections, including meters, I'll just read it, it's pretty short, meters and other appurtenances shall become and remain the property of the district and shall be dedicated to the district before the district will undertake water service to the subdivision. So there's not discretion, there's no discretion to not accept the dedication. The only discretion is whether the developer has complied with the regulations in constructing the main. It sounds to me that you've been presented by your water engineer that it does meet our standards and regulations. So I just want to point that out. We are required to accept the main, the dedication of the main under both our code and the main extension agreement with the developer. Getting back to your question, I'm not, this particular regulation pertains to subdivision projects. Other projects, you know, regular main extension agreements, I'm not sure we have that same mandate. We may, I just don't know off the top of my head. I don't know if that answers your question, Director Slater Carter.
Well, it as I recall, there is equity of treatment for like classes of businesses in state law. And if another, say if a hotel came in and had to enlarge a main for us to be able to serve it, then we may be creating future legal problems for ourselves if we were not to accept this. So I'm concerned about the fair treatment requirements.
Let's go to Harold. I see your hand up.
Yeah, hi, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to raise some comments here. So I have two questions. One is the water reliability charge. So as this is also, I understand, used to basically fund future maintenance costs. So how is that applied to Big Wave? Is that by unit? So will every unit in Big Wave pays the same what every other ratepayer pays in the district? That's question number one. And then the second question, and this is especially concerning as we see what's going on right now in California and Oregon with all the fires. And it seems like when we add these large scale developments, and we have this one and then another one coming, how much are they on the hook to basically add to our water tank reserves to be better prepared? And we are talking here about multi-story, multi-unit, complex building structures. And is there an expectation that they just plug in and we have what we have? Or are they asked to basically provide in the system as well. Because we, as I think the existing ratepayers, I mean, we paid over, was that 15, 20 years now, you know, the tanks and everything that came with it. And we have new developments coming in, large developments coming in, and it seems like they might not be asked to pay for that. So these two questions, water reliability and then fire reserve capacity.
Clemens, do you want to tackle
Yeah,
that?
sure. The water system reliability charge is a charge that is applied, that essentially looks at the meter size. So it's a apportioned charge. The meter size is depending on the number of fixtures and units. So that is proportionate. The question in regards to the fire flow, I'm going to see if Tanya can help me answer this a bit better, but I'm essentially going to say, well, we have actually the required fire flow, and the connection charges are essentially what Big Wave is contributing to what the construction of the tanks required. So they're participating in the cost through the connection charge.
So, but question number one, I'm not sure that I understood. So has a developer the opportunity to place a system?
No,
here?
because
you didn't say, if let's say there's 30 or 50 units, does that mean 50 times the water reliability charge? Or can the developer choose?
So what I'm saying is the more units and the more fixtures are behind a meter, the larger a meter becomes, and the more expensive the water system reliability charge becomes. And so there is a proportion to that. I can't tell you right now if, you know, Big Wave is going to have, you know, the number of units that Big Wave is going to have, and if you are multiplying that number of units, if that equals the meter size, but this is what we're actually going to determine going forward. So this is not up for discussion ultimately. We're talking about the main line right now.
Okay.
Let me try to
I
restate.
have a question.
Catherine, hang on a second. Let me try to restate that in some direct terms. When they present the plans for what they intend to construct, they will meet with our staff and with our engineer, and our engineer will, based on their plans, will assess what size meter they need to serve that. And so it will scale very, very directly with the demand that they place on the system. And our water rates are set working with economists to make sure that that kind of thing scales in a proportion that works out basically neutral across the system. So like if you look, you see very big differences in what kind of bills come out of, say, the local hospital. They have a very large water meter. There's a range of them, but that's maybe one of the largest in the district. But that's an example of where that kind of thing has already been done in practice. And so what Clemens was saying was when they come to us to present their plans and talk about a service connection, that's when our engineer will do the engineering work to figure out what that takes.
And that compares then to, let's say, a single family home where you have a single senior, 80 years old, which we have quite a lot, I understand, in our community.
That argument.
And they're on the hook to fully pay the water reliability charge versus in some of the developments that we have.
Let me just say that there's no, it's the policy of the board that, and has been for a long time, that people carry their own weight, that all of us together, each of us carrying our own weight for what we're putting on demand for the system is how we all work together as one district and one system. So, you know, you're welcome to take a look at our what's the name of the document, Clemens? I want to say our rate schedule, but it has a name that defined it on the website.
Our master fee schedule?
Yes, thank you. Our master fee schedule, it's on the website. And Harold, you may find that informative. It may lead to more questions, but we're happy to field them.
Okay.
Let me go to, the water tank. Let's make sure we touch on that. Did we address that on the?
So what I said is that we have enough fire storage for the development, for the big wave development in the tanks.
Okay, all right.
And yeah.
All right, let's see. Let me go to Catherine first, and then I'll go to Greg.
Thank you. Our service area is where this is. Our border, our boundary for Montara Sanitary District is at the southern edge of Pillar Ridge. And we incorporated CSA 12 into our water service area. As such, this parcel, which has had no value, has not been paying into our bond. But we need to go to LAFCO and incorporate all of CSA 12 into our official district boundaries now, so that we won't get any sewer tax property taxes from that, because it's in Granada Community Services District. But if we incorporate it into our MWSD district, they will then be included on the bond payments. And Harold and Greg raise a very good point. They should be paying for the bond now that they have some value, and will be utilizing the rest of the district, just like all the people who have paid into the bond for all of these years.
All right, Greg.
So I have two questions for Christine in response to her comments. Christine, how could I get copies of the statutes that you're citing? You mentioned two alternatives. There's no chat capability here. Can we do something to minute what you said so I can research it further? That was one question. Can I get those statutes? The second thing is, you made a comment that sounded to me like if the district had done its homework before it signed an agreement with Big Wave to allow the construction of this pipe, then it could have done something more in the way of considering and assessing the incremental costs and risks that this development poses. But somehow we've lost that chance. That's what I thought I heard you say. And so that's why I'd like to get clarification on that. My bottom line comment, though, is, and Catherine's bringing up comments, that bear on this, I don't think the district has done a good job of doing a pro forma financial analysis and coming up with the pluses and minuses of a project this huge and its impact on the ratepayers. And that's what I'm asking you to do before you accept it. In the interest of all the ratepayers, make sure they're held harmless. Catherine's brought up a good point. They should be paying for the bond. So maybe there's more to this P&L than any of us knows if we start thinking through it. And I know you don't use the terms P&L, that's my business background, but you know what I'm saying. There's incremental costs, risks, and revenues here, and they should be assessed before you take this leap. Thank you.
Greg, I'm going to mention that the what you're referring to is our water and sanitary code. If you go to the website in the documents and links section, scroll down just a little bit to the water and sanitary code. And in particular, one I wrote down that Christine mentioned is section 5-4.213. And if you just search for 5-4, it'll take you right to that section in the water code. And so it's good reading. It's really good reading.
Yes,
So
it is.
you don't have to go far to find it. It's right there on our website, but it does help to get pointed in the right direction. So that's why I asked Clemens for the magic words for master fee schedule, because it's a lot easier to find when you know the terms. And I know the terms, but I tell you, when you're on camera, sometimes they just slip out. Was there, let's go to the board. Any board discussion or questions?
Further?
I would like to say that I appreciate the work that staff, our engineers have done. This has been a very long, very challenging process. A great deal of diligence has gone into the work on this over many years. And I want to especially commend staff for patiently and professionally working through this from start to, it's not finished because they're not connected yet, but start to where we are right now. It's been a lot of work, and it's a substantial project. It's had a lot of ups and downs, and I think you've comported yourselves professionally and in a way that reflects well on the district over all of this time, and I appreciate that.
Well, I'd like to make a comment to Greg's comments. And that is, I appreciate your comments, Greg and Harold, because they're exactly contrary to the arguments that we are constantly given about the economies of scale and how much better it is to have larger districts, larger customer bases. And what you're saying is this kind of study should certainly be done before any kind of consolidation between districts. And because I've been working on this project for a long time, and using the concept that if this is paying $50,000 worth of water use and infrastructure fees every year, it helps to maintain the district and keep the costs down without adding significant additional demand to the general ratepayer. And so we can either not have to raise the rates to attain that needed $50,000 to $100,000 a year. And I'm pulling that number out of the hat. It has no basis in fact, but I know they're going to be paying more than $10 or $50 or $100 a month. So I'm just guessing. But they will be adding significantly to the rate base. And if we were going to be doing a serious study, we'd need to look at what happens if our district doesn't grow. Then the rates for the ratepayers and the cost of infrastructure keeps going up because wages and repairs and equipment is going up. And this is a particularly concerning time with the inflation that's coming.
Jim.
Yeah, can I ask a question in regard to Catherine's comment about the bond? If we accept this or not accept it, does it or does it not change our chances of getting them involved in the bond payment? Is there any connection with our passing this or not to whether they end up paying the bond?
I'm going to give it a stab, Jim. I don't see a connection between the passing or the acceptance of this. Like Christine mentioned, this is something that we're obligated to do through our code. As Catherine said, we have our boundaries are sewer district boundaries. This is outside our sewer district boundaries. However, we purchased a service area with the acquisition of the water system, and this is part of the water system. With that, I think what Catherine is alluding to is that we filed an application a very long time ago to consolidate with County Service Area 12. And County Service Area 12 is essentially our district plus the water service area. So I think Catherine is simply saying, let's pick up where we left it off and let's look at if now, actually we have a better chance of getting this to LAFCO. That's what I heard Catherine say. So to your question,
That's it. That's
don't see a
exactly it.
I don't see a direct relation whatsoever between this action here and the consolidation with CSA 12.
Okay, thank you. That answers my question. I appreciate that. With that, I'd like to make the motion then. Is this a single motion, the first motion?
Yes,
The resolution?
yes.
Resolution of the Montara Water and Sanitary District accepting offer of dedication of subdivision water utility improvements. Big Wave APNS 047-311-060 047-312-040.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Board, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, Tracy, can we please have a roll call vote?
Okay. Director Boyd,
Aye.
Director Decker,
Aye.
Harvey,
I'm sorry, you blocked out.
Director Harvey,
Aye.
Director Loman,
Yes.
Director Slater Carter.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries 5-0. The resolution is adopted. Okay.
And thank you, Tim and Tanya, for your diligent work on this. And for the public, in the past, we have had mainline extensions for projects, and they had to be redone. It's nice to have Tanya and Tim keeping an eye on this, and I'm sure we're going to be getting the as-built as well as all the plans that you looked at, so that we can keep track of where this is. And thank you.
Thank you.
We have that. That's
I
great.
figured I was asking a rhetorical question. I know how excellent you guys are.
Thank you.
Well, we really count on you. And so we're grateful for being able to do that.
Hey, Scott, real quick.
Yeah, Rick?
Yeah, when we get around to all those LAFCO discussions, wouldn't it be great if we had a LAFCO rep actually on the board here?
I think that would be great. All right, let's, we keep saying LAFCO and it's our practice, and tonight we haven't done it yet. LAFCO stands for the Local Agency Formation Commission, and it's an organization. Every county has one, and it comes from the state, and they keep an eye on, does it make sense to have all of the local agencies that we have? And our local LAFCO seems to really have it in for small districts and wants to like merge them all out of existence. But we have a long-standing working relationship. And Rick, who do we have here who's got significant experience as a member of the LAFCO board?
Let me look around here.
Look in the mirror, Rick. Okay.
I'll take it.
So Rick has spent he's invested very heavily into becoming our local LAFCO expert and participant.
I do it for all the big money we get on those meetings every 2 months.
Even before he became interested and active in LAFCO, he was interested and active in LAFCO.
Yeah, he's an actual LAFCO nerd, and we love that about him. All right, let's go to new business item 2, review and possible action concerning employee wellness program.
Thanks, Scott. This is something that we're bringing up since I think 4 years now. Every year, we are getting a little wellness grant from Aqua JPIA. So Scott, this is the Association of California Water Agencies Joint Powers Insurance Association. So Aqua JPIA is giving us each year a little bit of money. This year, it's the same amount as last year. It's $272 for for essentially a program where our employees can ask for a $25 per month stipend for any wellness related activity. So we have been authorizing this each September. So from September through September. And last year, our employees used a total of $559.83. I think it was a little more difficult during the pandemic to utilize this money. But it looks like Aqua JPIA is actually really opening up and encouraging all a number of various forms how this money can be used. With that, the board authorized in the past up to $2,120 of district funds that would essentially be needed if all employees participate every single month in this program. So we're asking again that the district authorizes up to $2,120 of district funds for contributions to our full-time employees' participation in wellness activities, and that's for $25 per month per employee. And
So
of course,
moved.
after proof of payment by the employee.
Happily
So moved.
second.
So we have some eager motion second. I think this is great. I'm glad to see this continuing. I appreciate that last year they couldn't spend the money well because of the pandemic. I really hope that this is a good program, and I'm eager for everyone to, all the staff to avail themselves of this. Do you have any further discussion? Boy, I really just want to do a voice vote. Tracy, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Okay. Director Boyd,
Aye.
Director Decker,
Aye.
Harvey,
Aye.
Bowman,
Yes.
Director Slater Carter.
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Let's go to the next item on the agenda as I wait for my page to load. Review and possible action concerning Aqua Region 5 board election.
Right, thanks, Scott. One more time, Aqua, I think that's actually one of the better acronyms. It's the Association of California Water Agencies. We're part of Region 5. And they're asking its members to elect a chair, vice chair, board members as well. We had Bob Batasik was for a very long time on Region 5, serving as a board member on Region 5. So this time they're asking for electronic submittal, and the ballot is required by September 30, 2021. We've attached the ballot here. We're asking to suggest suitable candidates that could be elected. And I'm happy to be directed to submit the ballot on behalf of the board.
Okay. On the first item, Rick and I just spent the last 4 days at the California Special District Association. And for District 5, there is a board member from North Coast County Water District, Jack, I can't pronounce his last
Burgess,
name. Barrett
I think.
Burgess, yes.
Mhm.
He's just an amazing man. He is so knowledgeable about water. And we really hit it off. We were going to be getting together to talk about water and common district issues common to both districts. We met their new general manager, who's going to be getting in touch with you, Clemens. She's got a PhD in hydrogeology. And so my recommendation is that both for vice president and for member, we vote for Jack Burgess and just leave it at that.
That
So
sounds good.
this is different from the initial thought. Is that correct?
It's not a slate. It is, the initial thought is for Aqua as a whole. And that candidate for the vice president has been recommended by Jeremy Youngrice, who is the attorney for Sam and has worked with her for many, many years. I had a long conversation with her one night and I said, why should we vote for you? We're a small Northern California district and you're a huge Southern California district. And then we got talking about all the issues we had in common. The fact that Jeremy recommends her carries a lot of weight with me. I've spent a lot of time with Jeremy when I was down at the CASA conference, and I've been really impressed by the work he has done for Sam. We haven't spent any time talking about the work he has done for Sam outside of what has been authorized and asked for by the SAM board. But for instance, on the BOD issue, he actually found he and Keishan found a 1994 biological oxygen demand permit process that had been created and with the rotating general managers had sort of fallen off the shelf. So I have a lot of respect for Jeremy and for his experience with a lot of special district people.
So this is actually the next agenda item that you're talking about.
I just
on
put
the
them both
agenda.
together. This is the
Yeah,
first one for
Right
District
now, we're
5.
looking at.
Catherine, what I was
Region
trying
5.
to do was understand where we were.
So region, we're here at Region 5 and the
We're here at
Region 5
Region
board
5.
member would essentially vote for the Aqua Vice Chair and Chair. And we're looking at the next board item to adopt a resolution to support Kathy Green in that regard, but we don't have a direct vote for that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to support Catherine's comments. You have a slate there and the options are just vote for the slate, which is probably going to be elected anyway. I think it's good when you find a particularly good person. I don't think voting for the whole slate, just, hey, let's vote for the slate, does much good. But if you want to try to ensure you get one person who's really outstanding and make sure he gets in. So if the motion is to just for this item, vote for, Jack and just leave the rest blank, I'm fine with that because.
So Jack is a candidate for board member, and he's also a candidate for vice chair of Region 5. We would then have to pick a candidate for chair.
Or not.
Or not.
So it sounds to me like of the choices, there's a candidate for chair, for vice chair, and then a maximum of 5 for board members. If I understand our Catherine and Rick, your suggestion is that we vote for Jack in the vice chair and the board member categories and make no other votes.
Exactly.
I just think that's fine.
And then, and how does this differ from the next item? Oh, that's Region 5. Okay, so we're
Yeah.
talking about Region 5 now, and then next we're talking about the statewide organization. Is that right?
Exactly.
Correct.
Ah, okay. Thank you. So Region 5.
I was more confused than that, so I'm glad you got confused there.
Region 5.
I'm still confused.
Recommendation is that we vote for Jack in both categories. Jim?
No, that's fine. That's good.
And only Jack, because we all know how only voting for one candidate gives a more solid vote.
So if that's the recommendation, can I have a motion in a second and then we can have a board action on this?
So moved.
I second.
Second, or Jim, let Jim do it.
That's okay.
So Catherine and Jim, and the the motion is to cast a vote for Jack Burgett for vice chair and cast a vote for Jack Burgett for candidate for board members. It's been moved and seconded. Tracy, could we have a roll call, please?
Okay. Director Boyd,
Aye.
Director Decker,
Aye.
Harvey,
Aye.
Director Loman,
Yes.
Director Slater Carter.
Yes.
Rick, you still have your hand raised. Was there anything further?
Oh, nope, that was earlier. Sorry. I
Okay.
got to unlower it.
I will be so happy to get in touch with Jack. He is just a really solid, terrific Pacifican.
Pacifican.
All right. So let's look then at new business item 4, review and possible action concerning support for Kathy Green for office of Aqua Vice President.
Yeah, this item was brought to us by Director Slater Carter. So Catherine, if you want to once more tell us why you think we should vote, actually support Kathy Green. The recommendation here is to adopt a resolution of support to support her for first vice president for the office's Aqua Vice President. Excuse me, no, essentially support her in her efforts to be elected to the office of Aqua Vice President.
Right, and she was recommended by Jeremy Youngrice, who's the attorney for Sam. He's worked with her for many years. Jeremy is an excellent attorney, and it's been my observation he is does not make recommendations lightly. As a result of his recommendation, I asked him for her contact information, and I ended up on that same evening talking to her for an extended length of time. She's very much in favor of transparency and in helping large and small, in having Aqua be responsive to large and small water districts, and their needs are not all that different. One of the things that we talked about is, and Aqua needs to be involved with, and she would encourage that, is at the legislative level, where the legislature has decided that it doesn't care what it costs special districts or to do some of the things they're requesting. These costs eventually or immediately get passed on when they're implemented to the ratepayers, and then the water district boards take the hit as being incompetent and not knowing how to manage our money, when in fact what we're doing is implementing what the regulators have required us to do. There's a few cases in our wells and water treatment systems at the airport where we've had to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars just to keep the regulators happy. The engineers had a much less expensive solution, but the regulators decided they didn't like that. So I was very pleased talking to her. I admit I didn't talk to any of the other candidates. I'm relying on Jeremy's recommendation. And I just recommend that we approve the recommendation.
All right. Do we have any comments or questions from anyone?
I want to say that we're going to correct the date on it and change it to today's date.
All right. I'd like to thank you, Catherine, for investing the time to look further into Jeremy's recommendation and take the time to meet her and get to know her. It's great to have a recommendation. It's greater yet to be able to pursue it and get your own experience with it. So thank you for doing that. It's often that person to person thing that has really helped this this district to do some really interesting things. Some of it is really who you know. So with that, we are being asked to approve a resolution of the district to support Orange County Water District First Vice President Kathy Green as a candidate for the office of Aqua Vice President. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
So Rick,
Second.
giving it to Jim because Zoom put the green box around your face. So you win. Tracy, can we have a roll call, please?
Director Boyd,
Aye.
Director Decker,
Aye.
Harvey,
Aye.
Director Loman,
Yes.
Director Slater Carter.
Yes.
Thank you. The resolution passes 5-0. Next up, this is a report of Committee of Green Foothills concerns about the Association of Bay Area Government, or ABAG, their goals. Let me introduce this one a little bit. I received in the mail something from the Committee for Green Foothills, and as I was reading it, I was reminded of a conversation I was having with Greg Diegas some time ago, saying, with the interest that you have in the pressures that influence how things go in the community, you should get to know about ABAG. And he's like, what's ABAG? So I offered a pointer or two. What you see in the packet is a copy of the information that the Committee for Green Foothills is sharing with a lot of people about Coyote Valley and rural lands. But I think if you read it and you think about our community, you'll find a number of the topics that we have talked about from time to time, very well expressed in one place. And it's very important, in my view, to understand the kind of pressure that ABAG can put, not just on Coyote Valley and rural lands down there, but all around the Bay Area, because it's the Association of Bay Area Governments. They set development goals and drive development into all sorts of places, and often with no regard for natural resource limitations. So mostly I just wanted to make sure that you all saw it, but I also wanted to make sure that we shared it with our community. You may look at it and decide that you want to weigh in on the issue that Committee for Green Foothills is asking for. That's not my particular interest. I think they've just captured very well information in a consumable form that I think really informs about ABAG and the oversized role they play in what happens here. Rick?
Yeah, I'd like to say I do support this issue and their letter and support their things. My comment on ABAG and their power and sometimes them not following their own rules would have to do with affordable housing. They made some very strong, intelligent comments early on that when you put affordable housing in, it should meet 3 serious criteria. Affordable housing should go in near public transportation. It should go in near shopping, and it should go in near jobs. That all makes wonderful sense. And then the group starts supporting affordable housing projects that sometimes can meet none of those criteria. So they do these kind of good statements. We are against urban sprawl. And then they seem to start supporting projects that are sprawling urbans all over the place. So I think it's good that other agencies help be watchdogs for this big group and their power. So when they start doing things like extending all these developments literally out into open space south of San Jose down there and elsewhere, I think it's good to help support comments saying, hey, this isn't what you're supposed to be doing, and this doesn't agree with your own statements. So I would support this. I think it's a good idea.
Do we have any other comments or questions?
Yeah. SB Senate Bill 10 was approved on August 30th. It is the state legislative act that, and one of the clauses is that it restricts restrictions enacted by a local initiative are no longer valid. A local government may adopt an ordinance to zone a parcel up to 10 units of residential density per parcel. It is at the height specified by the local government and ordinance, blah, blah, blah. There's this huge move by the housing industry to be able to build houses willy-nilly anywhere and upzone and increase the number of units on a parcel. And it doesn't matter what the local citizens are concerned about anymore. Talk about not much transparency. There were thousands of people who wrote to object to SB 9 and 10. They were both approved. So they're in reconciliation. This ABAG thing is part of the same huge growth initiative. And there are other places to put affordable housing. There are underused commercial lots. There are places closer to transit, closer to jobs, closer to urban amenities. Most of these rural open space parcels, they simply want to bulldoze in more highways, more freeways, lots more roads, and pack them full. When we have communities that are so desperately in need of getting out of this congestion. So I will make the motion. I strongly support this. And
So
I think
tonight it's on our agenda tonight as an information item.
I'd like to, Scott, you and I and Clemens can draft a letter. I'd like to get this, actually, I'd like to be able, as individuals, we can each write in support of the Committee for Green Foothills. Every individual, I, Dave, and Michelle too, every individual can write to support the Committee for Green Foothills recommendation, but I would like to take it to a little bit stronger and have a letter from this district. What these growth things are doing is undermining all of the strategic plans and infrastructure plans created by the water and sewer and parks and other infrastructure agencies, even cemeteries. They just, to Greg's points, they just want to put all of the costs of this stuff on the current ratepayers. And that's wrong. So I'd like to get this district on record as opposing this kind of destruction of the kinds of amenities that have made California a place people want to live, and stop turning us into a crowded subdivision junkie place.
Can we officially agendize this for the next meeting to write a formal district letter?
We can. I'm
Is there a
curious.
time limit?
I'm curious whether or not this is still, whether or not this is still active, or if it might be a little late. It's unclear to me. The Green Foothills page says the page you're trying to access is not accepting submissions at this time. I don't know if that's a broken web page or if ABAG has already heard the matter, so I need to tell you what, let's find out. And if it's still an active matter, let's bring it back at the next meeting
Okay.
for possible action to do what Catherine suggests. I see a hand up from Greg. Greg?
I just want to mention, I've been working with a couple of local political groups, including mayors and city council people from a number of towns. There is an emerging citizens initiative petition headed toward the ballot, which will relate to this entire issue of overbuilding and the unfunded costs of growth being borne by citizens. So stay tuned. We'll have more to say. If you haven't already heard about it, more to say in the coming months.
Well, good. Let's get that petition circulating, Greg, so that we can all sign it.
Okay, let me get back to our agenda. If we have no further, anything further on that, everyone? Anyone? No? All right, information about composting solid waste services. This is about composting services, not about composting the services themselves. Beginning January of 2022.
You need really big bins for that.
All right, thanks, Scott. So we have to comply with SB 1383, which means that we have to begin weekly green waste and compostable material pickup in the residential areas. And that's starting in early January 2022. What that means is that all materials, food, green waste, and some paper materials will be commingled in the current green 96-gallon cart. So there's no need for any change in carts. There is currently what we're allowing is a second 30-gallon container that is that isn't provided by Recology, and that would fall away. Instead, the frequency is increased and it's now a weekly pickup. Again, all of that is going to start in early January 2022, has to. So we are rolling out an education and outreach program to all customers regarding the new program, and that will begin in this month. So we're going to do this by mail, online, website. Recology is also good at posting stuff on Nextdoor. They promised to do that, and also in the Half Moon Bay Review. So what's coming to this board is really we have to adopt an ordinance or adopt SB 1383 by ordinance, and that is in accordance to CalRecycle's guidelines. So that's what's coming to us very soon. And we are where we are in this whole process. This is going to impact our rates. We just got some information about this, and I think all of this is going to end up, I hope, in a positive surprise, as far as I can see. So we are, as usual, taking the information that we get from Recology that includes now this additional service and also other cost increases, and are asking our accountant to review the information first. The next step for us then is to meet with our solid waste committee. I think that is Jim and Catherine. And we're gonna talk this through with our committee, get some input from them, and then bring this to the board. And I think all of this will happen very soon. So this is really just information.
Yeah.
So more to come. Thank you.
Okay. So I have a question for you, Clemens. So if I understand this correctly, what everyone will have is one blue bin for recyclables, one green bin for composting all the compostable materials, and then one solid waste container for what's left, what we might call the trash can.
Yes, that's correct. And on the additional service is going essentially into the green bin that everybody currently already has, and we all have the same size. It's a 96-gallon can. You can choose the size of the gray can, and that now essentially determines how much you're actually paying for your service. The gray can, which is the solid waste, everything that isn't going into the blue recycling bin or in the green waste, now compostable material, green bin. So everything that doesn't go in there is going in the gray can, and that really determines the size you choose, determines how much you pay to Recology.
Okay, I see a hand raised, Greg Diegas.
So I gotta admit, I'm still confused. I already compost, I think, just about everything I can. So
Doesn't matter.
when you go, yeah, that's my point. When you go around explaining this to people, if you could come up with maybe a few usage scenarios and describe, how things are going to be different, that would make it easier for us to understand what's going on. One thing I'm unclear on is if there's something I'm not composting that I'm putting in the gray can, am I now legally obligated to put it in the green can? I mean, that won't affect me, but it might affect other people who, I don't know. And what's the definition of compostable? I don't compost anything with salt in it, for instance. So, I mean, needs a lot of explanation, needs
Good
a lot
idea.
of proofreading. I'd be happy to help.
So there's going to be a lot of detail coming, but I hear what you're saying. I think out here in Montara, a lot of folks are already composting on them by themselves or for themselves. So, I mean, what we're talking about here is there's a requirement to provide this service. So everybody has to receive this service starting January. And I understand that most folks in the community have been finding a solution for this for themselves in the past. That's why we were able to avoid the additional cost. Unfortunately, we can't going forward.
Well, let me just add, we compost as well. We're not gonna stop composting because we get some really rich material that serves really well on our plants. But as we keep noting throughout tonight's meeting, especially, a lot of things come to us from outside forces that we get to contend with, and this is one of those. So we're gonna make the best of it. But yeah, thank you for your suggestions, because you're right. There will be a fair bit of confusion, and we can do some things to try to limit that.
What we have gotten a lot is actually, in the past at least, we've gotten a lot of requests to increase the green waste, the amount of green waste that can be picked up.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's addressing at least some of that issue. So now anyone who has, because Montarans maybe have a little more greenery that needs to be cut back and disposed of. So now that is an option, of course, that you can take advantage of right now.
Oh, and I'd like to add that we had an addenda item a little while ago about the drought and the effect of low flow on the sewer pipes and the sewer plant. And by reducing the amount of solids going to the sewer plant through not using our garbage grinders, our disposals, it will be easier for Sam, and it is better for our sewer system and our sewer pipes. So I think this is timely in that regard. But you are correct, Clemens. Recology did a study of a survey of how many people in Montara and Moss Beach compost, and I think it was pretty close to 100%. Some of the things that I don't think people do compost, and I'd like to get clarification from Recology, is about paper towels and paper plates and paper products. one of the things I have learned over the years is these wipes that we use for various cleanliness projects are not paper, they're plastic. And so we need to be telling people that these extra strength napkins, paper towels, wipes, and these kinds of things that appear to be paper and could be composted is just putting microplastics into the environment. And I don't think that's something we want to do.
Yeah, a lot of
I
these
think
rags are cotton, but I hear what you're saying. Some paper plates are plastic lined and potentially not recyclable. Again, Recology has been very good at very detailed at providing the information to us, and that is what's coming. I don't have the information yet, but knowing how Recology handled that in the past, I know they're very detailed. It's about how to distribute it best, and I think we're throwing it out any way we can. So hopefully it gets to the customers, and I think that also includes, with the new service, handing flyers actually out to each customer when the service begins, for example.
Rick?
Yeah, just a real quick thing, because everybody's talking barrels and bigs and littles and stuff like that. The quick summary is that now you're getting the big barrel, which is 96, and you're getting a little barrel of 32, which is like 4 barrels every 2 weeks. Now you're going to be getting 3 barrels every week. So as Clemens said, if you've got a lot of green waste, you're actually going to be able to get rid of more of it now. And that's a good fire danger reduction and things like that. So you'll be able to process more stuff off your properties here up here in Moss Beach, Montara, which has more trees and all that kind of stuff. So it's an improvement. It's like a 50% raise in service of getting rid of stuff. So that's a really good thing.
I got to tell you, just last week, one of my neighbors asked, isn't there something we can do to increase the green waste pickup? It's hard to remember which week it is, and it's never enough. And I'm feeling very efficient as a
every week now.
I'm like, but no, I'm gonna have to go back to my neighbor and say, I just forgot this is already coming. But thank you for putting in front of us, Clemens. Let's go to reports. Sewer Authority Mid-Coast.
Not a whole lot going on. The big deal most recently was, thanks, Greg, was the biological oxygen demand incidents that we've been having. It appears to be under control. There was a meeting with the potential permittees on Monday. I talked to Clemens about it today. There was a lot of assumptions and misinformation, miscalculations that had been made. According to Keishan, all of the participants went away happy. The spokesperson for the group sent him a very nice letter thanking him for the clarifications and the fact that they're going to be working together. One of the problems had been that the business owners thought they were going to be hit each with a $25,000 bill or something approaching that. It's going to be less than $1,000 for each business to get these samples taken and analyzed to see where they are, where this BOD problem is coming from. And so we're working on getting these biological, Clemens, help me, I'm tired from the conference. But for these permits that need to
The
be.
non-domestic NWSC,
N-
non-domestic waste
NW,
source
yeah.
control program.
Yeah, that's why I
permits.
can't remember the word.
What we affectionately just say glibly is the NDWSCP.
Yeah, that's just a word that's difficult for me. Anyway,
Rolls off the tongue.
so that was a program that was started in the mid 90s when there were some problems with the old plant. And when the new plant came in, there didn't seem to be a need for that program and it kind of got dropped. It kind of got dropped. It just wasn't actively paid attention to as it should have been. But it appears that the communications with the breweries and distilleries and potential NW, et cetera, it seems to be getting worked out, and they're getting more refined on their testing of the various points of flow. There was a finance committee meeting today. We went over the fourth quarter budget, and that will be on the agenda for September 13th. And other than that, let me see, I will ask for a analysis of where the 66.2% flow is coming from. This is it went up 4% in a month. That's a lot.
Catherine?
Yo.
Yeah, the other part of that piece was we voted to approve when the original plant was designed, 2 of the basins were supposed to have these magical little bubbling machines which help stir up all of this stuff and help it process better. They decided at the beginning, oh, we're just going to put 1 in. With all this increase in problems, it was also voted to go ahead with getting bids and start the process to install the bubblers in the other basin, which would massively increase our ability to handle these spikes and things like that at the same time too. So they're looking at analysis, the source control programs, and increasing these diffusers to handle the problems that actually get to the plant. So they're taking and they got consultants. They've been working this one to death. They've been working full time on this for months now to solve this problem.
Meanwhile, are we continuing to pay fines?
As Catherine said,
they haven't been assessed yet, but we are not continuing to accrue fines.
August, it went to like 0, and it's been plateauing at nothing since August. So we will probably get some fines. We will be showing the regulators, hey, look, here's what we're doing. We got consultants. We solved this problem. We're building new diffusers. So we're doing, we just found the problem. Look at all the stuff we're doing. They're not totally wonderful with those sort of things usually, so there will be some fines. But I think everything we're doing will, first of all, it'll kill future fines. But also they will probably be more lenient because we took such fast action and apparently have got an amazing job done of solving the problem. So.
Yeah, we will ask, I have asked Keishan to ask the Water Quality Control Board if we can work together on a project about BOD using the fine money that we otherwise might not have implemented.
Yeah,
so
use the money to buy infrastructure instead of just throwing it to Sacramento. So
exactly.
That's it.
That's it.
Only hands I see raised are Rick and Catherine. So
oops, I'll put mine down.
Let's move on to Mid-Coast Community Council. Greg.
Well, we took a vacation, skipped a meeting. The only thing I think I would mention is the wildfire season coming up and the intense interest in the area on this issue. A guy named Keith Mangold set up a table at the El Granada post office box just by word of mouth, got 450 signatures on a petition to send to the Board of Supervisors. I was not allowed to sign it. He only wanted El Granada people. So all I guess I'm saying for now is we might in Montara and Moss Beach want to consider whether we want to join in some force. The last estimate for totally revegetating and taking care of the eucalyptus that I saw was $150 million. That's one of the reasons I was so interested in the local hazard mitigation plan and FEMA money. And there's a lot of disagreement about whether that figure is too high and so forth and so on. The county has put in $500,000 and they started clearing out some eucalyptus in the El Granada medians, and there's some dispute about whether they're taking the right trees out at the right cost and whether the winds, the Diablo winds are a greater risk and should be defended in a method X, and prevailing winds are the greater risk and should be defended in method Y. But there's, all I guess I'm saying is there's a lot of passion, and there might be an opportunity to have Montara and Moss Beach residents join in some form to try and get our own fire reduction further under control, wildfire fuel reduction under control.
Well, congratulations on meeting a long-time worker for the coast in meeting Keith Mangold. Many of us have worked with him on a number of things. It's great to see him active and rallying, and I love the focus on El Granada spurring people here in Montara and Moss Beach thinking, well, we need to do something here too. It's not a bad response. So I say, go Keith, excellent work.
Thank you, Keith.
Yeah, CSDA report.
The meetings are every 3 months, so we bumped into some of the current officers of the chapter down at this conference, and they've been the pandemic has squashed a lot of attendance issues, and we're trying to reorganize like all the mail lists, which have been ancient. And so the current president's trying to restructure some of the processes now for the next meeting so we can help get more districts actually attending the Zoom meetings and things like that. So I think we all got a lot of good materials from other districts at this special districts meeting, which is going to help we keep trying to recharge the district and get, there's 26 districts in the chapter, which include every kind of district you can imagine. So doing common interests and common projects with hospitals, fire, mosquito districts, sewer, water is always going to be a challenge. Luckily, we have, the way LAFCO works, we get 2 of the 6 representatives on LAFCO too. So special districts are represented on all these LAFCO things. And I think after these meetings and seeing what the legislature has been doing to us in special districts, there's a big move to say, quit doing all these mandates where you just say, go do this, and then all the special district people pay for everything. So I envision that we're going to get a lot more active. Like I said, now they're going to Washington, Sacramento to say, hey, you guys don't understand what special districts are really doing. And the theme of the thing was heroes this week. And what a great job special districts are doing that's almost entirely unrecognized. And Sacramento has been doing this huge effort of expanding and getting the word out to everybody that, these are the folks who aren't in debt. They're not taking loans. These are the people who are doing the frontline work. And you got to start thinking about that. So I'm looking at this will get better in the future.
Okay, thank you. Rick, how about the local agency formation commission report?
Next week, as we finally had a meeting, they canceled the meeting 2 months ago because they didn't have any issues. And interestingly enough, they had a conference coming up next month and they canceled it because nobody wanted to go to LA area. And they didn't think the COVID restrictions were strong enough. So enough people weren't going, they actually just canceled the whole convention down in LA. So.
Okay. Attorney's report.
Yes, thank you, President Boyd. Just have a couple of remarks about returning to in-person meetings next month. The board, I know, recalls that the governor's June 11th, the governor repealed his Brown Act COVID orders that permitted virtual public meetings during the pandemic. So we will be returning to in-person meetings at the district offices as of October 1st. We plan to have an item on the next agenda to discuss the transition back and maybe some options the board would want to consider. There were a variety of bills intended to sort of permanently incorporate into the Brown Act some of the flexibility that the governor's COVID orders provided to agencies. A lot of them have fallen by the wayside. There's a couple that are still viable. They don't change the mandate that we will have to return to in-person public meetings next month. But it does seem like next year that the legislature will be continuing to introduce bills to hopefully get us to a state where we can take advantage of virtual meetings. The two bills that are still viable, they're still in the House. Well, they're back in committee right now, but one is AB 361. That may have been discussed at CSTA this past week. I don't know, Rick or Catherine, you might remember. That bill is intended to allow virtual meetings in the event of a declared emergency. So it basically would allow local agencies the discretion to permit virtual meetings in the event of a local emergency or a state emergency without having to wait for the governor to issue an executive order. And then the other bill, AB 703, is more broad and would generally codify what the governor did during COVID that permitted virtual meetings. But again, still making its way through the legislature, but I don't think it's going to be for this year. So that's my report.
Okay, thank you, Christine. Rick?
Oh, well, anyway, I'll go first. Yeah, it's this was a super hot topic, of course, at the special districts meeting. There was basically saying we can't go back. And I got one interesting comment, which was really interesting, that if you go to even mixed meetings, and with the current laws, if there's a meeting and you're going to call in, you have to announce where you're calling from. You know, this is if somebody's traveling, you say, well, I'm in Minneapolis, blah, blah, blah. But if you're at home, you have to say, here's where I live. And that was not necessarily a great topic for some people to tell everybody in the universe, oh, here's my address in case you want to do something. So I don't know, as Christine said, but this is massively in flux right now, and what kind of combinations are going to be allowed, and I don't know if it's going to actually be decided by the end of September. I mean, in time for October 1st. We'll have to just see, because nobody wants to just say you're all going to go back to a meeting and that's it. So keep watching.
Let's go to Michelle.
So I'm thinking that regardless of what the governor does, that transparency and accountability are best served by creating a hybrid model, regardless of what's required. And I know, I don't know why your chat's not on, but I would drop in Dave Olson's chat on at the MCC meeting about how he is managing the hybrid situation. And he met with PCTV and he's got the whole hybrid thing down. So I don't think it's a financial issue. I think you can transcend the governor's lack of understanding, and maybe you guys have to show up, and that's too bad. But at least the public doesn't have to show up, and they can still see the meeting live, and they can still contribute. If you could get that chat open, I think you find that it will reduce staff time, because staff can answer the questions of people within the chat. GCSD has their chat open, and so does Sam. So I don't know why MWSD doesn't. But again, I really, really urge you to just look at Dave's stuff. I'll send it to Clemens, or just talk to Dave himself. I think, oh, he's online right now. So, I mean, so again, I think the problem's actually been solved. It may not be solved by the governor, but I think we, as the little people, we can solve the problem ourselves by just demanding that we want transparency for our constituents. Thanks.
Well, let me add that the Brown Act applies to board members and staff members, but not how we interact with the public. And that most of the districts I talk to about this are doing exactly what you're talking about, a hybrid model that allows the public to be able to call in, so that we get more public engagement. Exactly. And I don't know, we've had chat on in the past for MWSD. I don't know what's going on, and I'm trusting our experts to deal with that. It will get back on.
Let me weigh in on a couple of points. One, thank you for the comment, Michelle. I strongly support the hybrid mode. I see no reason not to do it going forward. And we've already had discussions about how we might do that. I'm much more concerned about the zero airflow, small contained space that is our current boardroom. And I'm going to be putting some energy into trying to find some way that we don't all have to go in there while COVID is still a thing. We keep our office right now somewhat pretty tightly controlled for the safety of our staff and the safety of the people who come to meet with staff. And until those conditions change, I think we need to find something that doesn't have people meeting in a situation where they're worried for their very health. It's not sensible. So I'm hopeful that someone at the state level works something out. The Brown Act is very clear, and it may put us in a hard place, but we'll figure something out. But Michelle, to your point about the hybrid meeting, absolutely. And I'm supportive of the chat if we can maintain order in the use of it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, Catherine, did you have anything further to say?
I wanted to speak under director's reports.
Okay, let's go then to director's reports.
Good. I went down to the CASA conference, and
explain CASA to them real quick.
CASA is the California Association of, I think it's either sewer or sanitation agencies. There was a lot of discussion on things the state is looking at to force sewer plants to increase, to change the standards for sewer plants. They're talking about having sewer plants, and particularly this attends to ones that are partnered with or doing recycled water. And Scott, the PFAs, the polyfluoral whatevers, of which there are many, many. They're looking at trying to figure out how to get sewer plants to remove microplastic. They're
With no
looking
funding.
at with no funding. No, this is
No
all going to
funding
come
for
from
any of this.
ratepayers. Yeah, Peter, I spent that whole several days just going, oh, I can't believe how callous they are to the ratepayers. They're working on having, instead of having biosolids sent to the dump, the current practice, they want them trucked somewhere and put on agricultural land, which is going to create a whole lot of problems of things that need to be removed before we can put it on agricultural land. The other issues that they dealt with is the California Air Quality Control Board is getting very concerned about air quality from generators and cars and trucks and sewer plants. And they're going to be having a remote sensing program or something like that that they're working on, so they can find you if you have air toxics and emissions, which right now they're not defined as toxics and emissions. So they were talking about, there are a lot of workforce issues, trying to figure out ways to recruit and train and recruit folks to work in sewer plants. There was a big discussion on communication with diverse populations about a lot of discussion on resiliency. And I brought this up before. The city manager for Paradise was speaking, and the biggest one of the, well, there were so many problems in Paradise. Roads were definitely, and looking at people trying to get out, and that's a problem in South Shore right now. But also, once a water pipe melts, there's no water in the hydrants. Everything drains very quickly. Sewer pipes were melting. And the melted plastics were getting into the pumps and the systems and the tanks. And so the cleanup from that is going to be, it's very costly. And so they're involved in legislative as well, because the legislature has all of it's all of these toxics, some of which are logical, but there appears to be quite an industry that thinks that getting the legislature to pass cleanup at the sewer plant level will be a good for the industry. Where they need to be removing many of these things is at the source.
Yep.
And not at the end waste lines where everything is mixed up. And I think that is particularly true of the PFAS and the microplastics. And in the discussions, finding, and microplastics are different than microfiber, which is also an issue of emerging concern. But it's good to be members of CASA and to stay in touch with that. And then for the CSDA conference, my mind is full on all the workshops I attended, so I can't even remember them right now. I have to review my notes. But there were one concept that came up, and it's a concept that at UCL UCLA there working on getting made a international crime, and that's ecocide. And that's knowledgeably destroying the parts of the ecosystem, either in short term or long term. And while we've been talking about the Green Foothills initiative on open space, it struck me, we need to start using that word. California is committing ecocide to the state of California by encouraging unlimited housing and not looking at the effects on the quality of life and the quality of environment for the state of California. At some point, we're going to have housing everywhere that it can be built, and leaving all of the desert stuff and uninhabitable areas for our parks and open space, and it just doesn't make much sense. So I am very concerned about that. And Clemens, one of the things that I talked to Keishan about today is I was talking to Neil at CSDA about opening a division of CSDA to include and deal with the issues of JPAs. Yep. And I'd like to get Keishan added to our account so he can view the emails and the legislative stuff for CSDA, because it has turned into such a good source of information. And he could just tag on as I don't know how you, as one of our consultants or something, but JPAs, it turns out even numbers of votes in JPAs happened to be in fashion at one point in time. I was talking to the guy from the Truckee Sanitary District today, and the JPA they run has a total of 4 votes. 3 cities each get 1 vote, and 2 ski areas each get a half vote, making 4 votes. So it would be interesting to look at, but I believe that as a lot of JPAs are aging and the agreements are aging, that it would be good to be taking a more global look at these problems. And since CSDA has a relationship with the League of California Cities, I think CSDA is it's more reasonable for CSDA to have a JPA branch than League of California Cities, since for them JPAs just seem to be a problem. But there were lots of interesting things going on at SAM. It was mostly revolving around legal constraints and legislative. And I'm done. Rick, I hope you remember more than I did. My brain is full.
I only remember one thing. They also give out awards for special clever things districts do, big ones and little ones. I just wanted to report on one of the ones the little districts did. They have like 218 miles of roads in their district. And
that was a good one.
They had a problem with manhole covers. And the only way they could check manhole covers was they hired a contractor to go look at every single manhole, and to get out there, he couldn't do it at midnight. So dangerous dodging cars, figuring out traffic, but to look at every manhole to see if it's, been bumped, because if they bump up, hurt a car, they get sued. So their solution was just cool, I thought. They did prototypes and then final versions of, basically they have a camera mounted on a vehicle, and they just drive these streets every day, and the camera is focused on the center of the road where the manhole covers are, and they cover every manhole in one day and every day. And they have AI software which pictures every single manhole every single day, and they can immediately see any issues. And this is just driving around every day, and it's they've like their maintenance costs and danger costs have like gone to zero, and everybody gave them a big hand as doing something really clever and different rather than just hiring somebody to. I don't know if that's applicable here for anything, but it was just a very clever thing they did. So that's my report.
I think this is the source control solution right there.
Yep.
Yeah, nice.
So anyway.
Okay, so let's go to any further director's reports? No? Okay, general manager's report.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that we are currently going through our lead and copper sampling, annual lead and copper sampling. And I wanted to thank the 21 participants in that who every year sample and go through a little bit of effort in helping the district to achieve our goals and essentially ensure that our water is safe. Thanks.
Okay. Well, that was short and sweet. Let me mention that in the board packet, there's also more from Clemens about things that happened in August. Let's see. So we are going to take a brief recess, about 5 minutes, and then come back in closed session. And we will be talking about a few things. One will be existing litigation. Half Moon Bay sues the entire rest of the coast side. I'm being a little glib on this. It's all properly noticed in the agenda. Anticipated litigation, 2 potential cases. Anticipated litigation, 1 case. And if we have any action taken in closed session, we will report that out when we come out of closed session. So with that, I would like to thank everyone for joining us this evening. Members of the public, thank you for sticking with us this long and for all the participation. We are in recess as of now, and we will come back in 7 minutes at 9:55.
Hi, guys.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Here.